In 1980, Steve Stone won 25 games for the Baltimore Orioles and took home the American League Cy Young Award. That alone would have made his season remarkable, but the way he reached 25-7 carried a warning inside it. Stone leaned on his curveball so heavily that he sometimes threw more than 70 of them in a game. He knew what that kind of workload could do to a pitching arm. He had already dealt with a torn rotator cuff. He had already been told, in one form or another, that his body was not built for the demands of a major league career. And still, through the long Baltimore summer, he kept taking the ball. The numbers began to accumulate on scoreboards and in newspaper box scores. 37 starts, 250 and 2/3 innings, 149 strikeouts, a 3.23 earned run average. He led the league in wins and winning percentage. His record was 25-7, a mark that set a Baltimore team record. For the Orioles, every Stone start became part of the rhythm of the season. The pitcher went deep into games. The bullpen protected his leads. His relief pitchers did not blow a save for him until his final start of the year. At the All-Star game, Stone carried that season onto a national stage. He entered the game as one of the American League's representatives and pitched 3 perfect innings. 3 innings without a hit, a walk, or a base runner. The clean white baseball kept returning to his hand, and each retired batter extended the feeling that this was no longer merely a surprising year.
Stone had become one of the league's defining pitchers. If you watched baseball in 1980, you remember how different a season like that felt. Before every pitch became a number on a screen, a pitcher's night was measured by the changing shape of the game, the dust around the mound, the catcher's target, the scoreboard lights, the sound that rose when a 2-out threat disappeared. Stone's season was built out of those small victories, repeated until the record became impossible to ignore. But behind the perfect innings and the 25 wins was a question that had followed him since he was a boy. How long could a pitcher who had spent his life proving people wrong keep paying the price for being right? To understand why 1980 mattered, you have to go back to the beginning. Steve Stone was not raised as a one-dimensional baseball prospect. He grew up in South Euclid, Ohio, a Cleveland suburb, in an Orthodox Jewish family. His mother, Dorothy, worked as a waitress. His father, Paul, worked with jukebox records before becoming an insurance salesman. His maternal grandfather, Edward Mannheim, lived to see Stone celebrate his bar mitzvah in September 1960. Baseball was part of his life, but it was not the only way he defined himself. At Charles F. Brush High School in Lyndhurst, Stone played baseball for Coach Jim Humple. He also won tennis championships, became a ping pong champion, and developed into a proficient golfer.
He was a broad athlete before he was a professional pitcher, someone comfortable competing in several sports and carrying himself beyond the narrow image of the ball player that surrounded him. That image mattered in Stone's era. Many teams still expected a player to make baseball his entire identity, to fit a particular posture and personality. Stone did not naturally fit that mold. Years later, he recalled that Charlie Fox, the San Francisco Giants manager, believed a ball player should chew tobacco, wear a sloppy uniform, accept a bloody nose, and eat, drink, and sleep baseball. Stone's own answer was different. Tobacco upset his stomach. He did not see the appeal of sleeping with the game, and he believed reading might be worth doing, even if the people around him did not. That tension became part of how others saw him. In 1971, Sports Illustrated writer Ron Fimwright described Stone as a Jewish intellectual who might become a right-handed Sandy Koufax. The comparison carried obvious weight. Koufax had given Jewish boys a model for what seemed impossible in American baseball. Stone understood that significance. Years later, he said Koufax had given little Jewish boys some hope. At Kent State University, Stone's baseball ability became impossible to overlook. His catcher was Thurman Munson, who would later become one of the most recognizable players of his generation.
Stone was selected to the All-Mid-American Conference team and named team captain as a junior.
He also continued to play other sports, taking part in bowling, volleyball, and tennis. He joined Alpha Epsilon Pi fraternity, and in 1970 he graduated with a teaching degree in history and government. That degree is more than a footnote. It helps explain the unusual shape of Stone's public identity. He was a pitcher, but he was also someone who observed, analyzed, and questioned the assumptions around him. The traits that later made him valuable in a broadcast booth were already visible in the way he approached the world. At Kent State, he had the ability to imagine baseball as a future, but the professional game did not immediately confirm that future. Cleveland drafted Stone in the 16th round in 1968, but he did not sign. The following year, the San Francisco Giants selected him in the 4th round of the secondary phase. He entered professional baseball later than some prospects and began a 3-year climb through the minor leagues. From 1969 through 1961, he pitched for Fresno, Phoenix, Amarillo, and Phoenix again. He compiled a 32-24 record and struck out nearly a batter per inning. The strikeouts suggested a pitcher with genuine weapons. The record suggested someone still trying to find a stable place in the system. When Stone finally reached the majors with San Francisco in 1971, the questions did not disappear. He was listed at 5 foot 10 inches and 175 pounds. His size became a convenient explanation for why he might not last, why he might not handle a starter's workload, why the next level might always be just beyond him. Stone would later describe the pattern with remarkable clarity. First, people told him he would never pitch in high school. Then they said he would never pitch in college. After that, perhaps he could pitch in college, but never professionally. Once he reached the minors, the prediction changed again. He would never make it to the majors. And after he arrived, the expectation became that he would never be good. Every level came with a new version of the same verdict. His early major league career gave those doubters just enough uncertainty to keep talking. In 1972, Stone went 6-8 with a 2.98 ERA for the Giants. That earned run average showed that he could get major league hitters out. But after he developed a sore arm, San Francisco traded him to the Chicago White Sox with Ken Henderson for Tom Bradley. The move was the first major interruption in a career that had barely begun. Stone had shown promise. Then the arm intervened. In the American League in 1973, he went 6-11 with a 4.24 ERA. Yet even in that difficult season, he ranked 4th in the league in strikeouts per 9 innings. The results were uneven. The ability was still visible. Then, after one season with the White Sox, Stone was sent across Chicago to the Cubs as part of the Ron Santo trade. In 1974, he went 8-5 with a 4.14 ERA. In 1975, he improved to 12-8 and pitched more than 214 innings. Those seasons established him as useful, durable, and employable. They did not make him a star. He was moving through organizations, building respectable seasons, and remaining just outside the level of performance that changes a player's reputation. For a young fan following baseball through the afternoon games and evening broadcasts, Stone's name would have appeared in several places before it ever became attached to a Cy Young Award. San Francisco, the White Sox, the Cubs, then back again. He was part of the game's working population, a pitcher who could give a team innings and keep a rotation together, but not someone anyone would reasonably place at the center of a season. And that was precisely the problem with trying to predict Steve Stone. The pitcher who would eventually win 25 games was still several decisions, several teams, and one serious injury away from becoming the player Baltimore would trust with the ball every 5th day. By the end of 1976, Stone's career faced its most serious threat yet. He had suffered a torn rotator cuff, the kind of injury that could reduce a pitcher's future to a set of bad choices. Stone refused surgery. He also rejected cortisone injections and underwent cryotherapy instead. There was no guarantee that the approach would preserve his career.
Stone became a free agent, listened to offers from several clubs, and chose to return to the White Sox for the 1977 season. The key factor in his decision was not his financial compensation. Rather, it was his faith. He had recently developed a strong spiritual conviction and told teams he would continue to pray for the success of their teams. There was no guarantee that the approach would preserve his career. Stone became a free agent, listened to offers from several clubs, and chose to return to the White Sox for the 1977 season. The key factor in his decision was not his financial compensation. Rather, it was his faith. He had recently developed a strong spiritual conviction and told teams he would continue to pray for the success of their teams.
That meant returning to Chicago, returning to the American League, and testing the shoulder under a major league workload. At Old Comiskey Park, the dimensions of the challenge were visible every time Stone climbed the mound. The ballpark's upper deck rose close over the field. The exploding scoreboard waited beyond the outfield. The sound of a pitch hitting the catcher's mitt could be swallowed by the broad, open space, then replaced in an instant by the hard crack of contact. For a pitcher coming back with a damaged shoulder, there was nowhere to hide the condition of his arm. The radar gun could measure velocity, but the standings measured survival. Stone made 31 starts in 1977. He pitched 207 1/3 innings and won 15 games, the highest total of his career to that point. His 4.51 ERA showed that those innings did not always come easily. He lost 12 games and led the league's pitchers with 10 wild pitches. Yet the central fact was that he had returned from a torn rotator cuff and taken the ball often enough to carry more than 200 innings. On August 29, Stone stood on the mound against Cleveland and delivered one of the strangest footnotes in either man's career. Indians second baseman Dwayne Kuiper hit a home run off him. Kuiper would come to the plate 3,379 times in the major leagues, and that would remain the only home run he ever hit. For Stone, it was one run surrendered in the middle of a long season. For Kuiper, it became a permanent part of his identity. That was baseball in the late 1970s, a game followed through nightly radio calls, morning box scores, and stories that grew funnier as the years passed. Some moments mattered to the pennant race. Others survived because no one could believe they happened only once. Stone returned to give the White Sox another 212 innings in 1978. He went 12-12 with a 4.37 ERA. Across those two seasons, he had made 63 starts and worked more than 419 innings on a shoulder that had already torn. He was proving that he could endure. He still had not shown that he could dominate. At 31, Stone reached free agency again. 4 other clubs made offers, but he chose Baltimore. The Orioles gave him a 4-year contract worth $760,000, placing him in an organization that had spent years competing through pitching, defense, and discipline. The move did not produce an immediate transformation. In 1979, Stone went 11-7 with a 3.77 ERA over 186 innings. He allowed fewer hits per 9 innings than all but 6 American League pitchers. It was a solid first year in Baltimore, and there were signs that hitters were having greater difficulty squaring him up. Still, nothing in his record made 25 wins feel inevitable. Through 9 major league seasons, Stone had won 78 games and lost 79. He had changed leagues, crossed Chicago, returned to the White Sox, and rebuilt a career around a damaged shoulder. He was respected enough to receive a multi-year contract, but his history described a capable pitcher whose best achievement might be his persistence. Then came 1980. By June, Stone's season had taken on a different shape. He was named the American League Pitcher of the Month, and during the week ending June 22nd, the league's Player of the Week. Each successful start pushed his record farther beyond anything he had done before. The mechanics of that success centered on the curveball. Stone threw it more than half the time, sometimes as many as 73 times in a single game. A good major league curveball does more than change direction. It changes the hitter's sense of time. The fastball appears quicker because the curveball has forced him to wait, and the curveball becomes harder to recognize because the fastball remains possible. Stone kept making that decision, pitch after pitch, even though he understood what repeated breaking balls might demand from his shoulder and elbow. He later put the trade-off in stark terms. I knew it would ruin my arm, but 1 year of 25-7 is worth 5 of 15-15. That quotation should not be mistaken for medical proof that one pitch or one season caused everything that followed. Stone's arm history had begun years earlier, and pitchers of his time worked under demands that were accepted as part of the profession. But his words reveal that the risk was neither invisible nor accidental. He recognized it, waited, and kept pitching.
And as the summer unfolded at Memorial Stadium, Baltimore kept winning. The stadium stood in its enclosed oval, shared by the Orioles and the Colts, with symmetrical reaches of grass and rows of seats rising beneath the lights. On summer nights, fans could follow Stone's progress through the changing numbers on the scoreboard and the accumulating tension of each inning. The Orioles did not need him to look overpowering in the modern sense. They needed outs, innings, and a lead they could protect. Stone gave them all three. His bullpen held nearly every advantage he handed over. Until his final start of the year, the Orioles relievers did not blow a save in one of his games. That support mattered. Pitcher wins are never produced by one man alone, and Stone had a strong Baltimore club behind him. But a team still needs someone to create those leads, to return every few days, and to keep the game under control long enough for the rest of the roster to finish it. For those who followed the Orioles that summer, the rhythm is the memory. Another Stone start, another curveball disappearing below a bat, another morning with his victory total one number higher. 20 wins already represented the old standard of excellence. Stone moved beyond it and kept going. The national confirmation arrived at the All-Star Game in Los Angeles. On July 8, 1980, Dodger Stadium held the Midsummer Showcase beneath its stacked decks and sweeping view beyond the outfield.
Players still wore their own club's uniforms in the All-Star Game, turning the field into a moving collection of American and National League colors. The public address announcements, the organ, and the national television broadcast gave every introduction a ceremonial weight. Stone was the American League's starting pitcher. He took the mound and retired the National League in order in the first inning. Then he did it again in the second, and again in the third. 9 hitters came up, 9 went back. No hits, no walks, no base runners. For 3 innings, on a field filled with the sport's best players, Stone was perfect. Anyone whose earliest baseball memories came through a television set in that summer may remember what the All-Star Game represented then. There was no nightly stream of highlights from every city, and no interleague schedule bringing the two leagues together during the season. The game offered a rare look at stars who otherwise seemed to inhabit separate baseball worlds. Stone received that stage and allowed nobody to reach base. The National League eventually won the game, but Stone's work was complete. His 3 innings had made the season visible to the entire country. The pitcher once judged too small and too fragile had started the All-Star Game and retired everyone he faced. Something had also changed in the way Stone approached his work. Earlier in his career, he said, he had tried not to lose. In 1980, he went to the mound expecting to win.
He described using visualization, imagining himself walking off the field as the winner. When negative thoughts entered, he erased them and replaced them with a clear picture of his team playing well, scoring runs, and helping him finish the night with another victory. The language was revealing
because Stone's career had been surrounded by negative predictions. He had heard that he was too small to pitch in high school. When he succeeded there, the limit moved to college, then professional baseball, then the minor leagues, then the majors. Even after he reached the highest level, people could still insist that he would never become good. By September 1980, every one of those barriers had fallen. Stone finished with 37 starts and 250 2/3 innings. His 3.23 ERA ranked 7th in the league. He also finished 7th with 149 strikeouts and 9th in innings pitched. He faced 1,048 batters. This was not a brief run of favorable decisions or a handful of well-timed appearances. From spring through fall, he carried one of the American League's heaviest starting assignments. The 25 victories led the league and set an Orioles record. His .781 winning percentage also ranked first. He finished 9th in the voting for the league's most valuable player and won the Sporting News Pitcher of the Year award. Then came the Cy Young vote. Stone received 71% of the voting share and won the American League award.
At 32, after 4 organizations and nearly a decade of uneven results, he had become the league's recognized best pitcher. For a career built under constant qualification, the award provided an answer without qualification. He had not merely reached the majors, he had reached the top. The danger is allowing everything that followed to diminish what happened in 1980. Stone's workload was heavy, his pitch selection was risky, his bullpen was dependable. All of those things belong in the account. So do the 25 wins, the 250 innings, the perfect all-star appearance, and the months of responsibility required to produce them. The season was both a team achievement and a personal gamble. It was also real. Baseball careers, however, do not stop at the moment that gives them their cleanest meaning. The following spring arrived, and Stone had to ask his arm to do it again. In 1981, shoulder tendinitis changed what he could give the Orioles. He went 4 for 7 with a 4.60 ERA. After 37 starts the year before, he made only 12. The contrast was severe because the peak had been so high and so recent. On September 29, 1981, Baltimore played Detroit. Stone made the start. The calendar had reached the edge of October, and Memorial Stadium no longer belonged to the heavy middle of summer.
The ball carried into the catcher's mitt, while the scoreboard recorded an outing that looked ordinary in the lines of a box score. 4 1/3 innings, 3 hits, 4 walks, 1 strikeout, and 3 earned runs. Then Stone came out of the game. There was no way for the people in the stands to know they had just watched the final major league appearance of his career. Baseball almost never identifies those moments while they are happening. The pitcher leaves the mound, another one enters, and the game continues toward its final out. Stone was 34 years old. Less than a year had passed since his Cy Young season ended. He attempted to return in 1982 and appeared in 2 spring training games. On March 21, the Orioles placed him on the disabled list. The recurring arm problems did not ease enough for another comeback. On June 2nd, Stone announced his retirement as an active player. His final record was 107-93, with 1,065 strikeouts over 11 seasons. In 3 years with Baltimore, he had gone 40-21. His .656 winning percentage during that span was the best ever by a Baltimore pitcher over a 3-year period. Those totals explain why Stone's career can look strange from a distance. He was not elected to the Hall of Fame, and the standard measures used to evaluate Hall of Fame pitchers place him far below the typical career level. He never won a World Series. Most of his seasons were spent as something other than an ace.
Yet for 1 year, he occupied baseball's highest pitching ground. The shortness of the peak does not make it imaginary. It makes the path to it more important. Stone had said that one season of 25-7
was worth 5 seasons of 15-15. After 1980, he never won another major league game. The choice he described, whether literal or rhetorical, came to resemble the shape of his career with unsettling precision. But his retirement did not remove him from baseball. It changed the part of the game he would use. In 1982, Stone joined ABC as a color commentator on Monday Night Baseball, working alongside broadcasters including Al Michaels and Bob Uecker. His arm could no longer carry him through a season, but he could still recognize what a pitcher was trying to do, explain why a manager might make a move, and see a confrontation developing before the result made it obvious. In 1983, he entered the WGN television booth for Chicago Cubs games. His partner was Harry Caray. For millions of viewers, especially those who discovered the Cubs through WGN's national reach, Stone's second career became more familiar than his first. Caray supplied the unmistakable voice, the emotion, and the sense that every afternoon at Wrigley Field was a public gathering. Stone supplied the diagnosis. He explained pitch selection, defensive positioning, and the chain of decisions underneath the action. If WGN baseball was part of your home, the memories may have little to do with the standings.
An afternoon game could be pranked in the room while dinner was being made or homework waited unfinished. Wrigley's ivy changed with the season. Caray's voice rose with the flight of the ball, and Stone told you what might happen before it did. Stone worked with Caray for 14 years. When Caray suffered a stroke before the 1987 season, Stone temporarily moved into the play-by-play role while guest announcers joined him. After Caray's death in 1998, Stone worked with his grandson, Chip Caray. The partnership with Harry became important enough that Stone and Barry Rosner later wrote a memoir about their experiences in the booth, titled Where's Harry? The second career brought its own physical interruptions. Stone left the Cubs booth for health reasons in 2000 while dealing with valley fever and kidney stones. He returned for the 2003 and 2004 seasons. By then, his willingness to say exactly what he saw had become both the source of his appeal and the cause of serious tension. During the 2004 season, Cubs pitcher Kent Mercker called the booth from the bullpen to object to comments on the broadcast and later confronted Stone in a hotel lobby. Reports also described Mercker and Moises Alou shouting at Stone on a team flight. Stone, meanwhile, had grown frustrated with manager Dusty Baker's handling of the club. The conflict came to a head as a talented Cubs team lost its hold on a postseason position.
After a 12-inning loss to Cincinnati on September 30, Stone sharply criticized the players for looking for excuses and said the team should have won the wild card by 6 or 7 games. The comments stunned Baker. They also contributed to Stone's decision to reject a contract extension and leave the Cubs booth after the season. Even in controversy, the connecting line in Stone's baseball life remained visible. As a young player, he had resisted an idea of how a ballplayer was supposed to think and behave. As a broadcaster, he refused to limit his analysis to what players or managers found comfortable. That independence could make him difficult for the people being criticized. It also made him valuable to viewers who trusted him to describe the game honestly. His ability to anticipate a play became part of his reputation. During a Cubs game in 2004, Stone warned against pitching to Cincinnati's Adam Dunn. Seconds later, Dunn hit a home run off Mike Remlinger to put the Reds ahead. In August 2007, while filling in on a White Sox broadcast, Stone predicted that Juan Uribe would hit a walk-off home run in extra innings. Uribe did. Those calls were memorable because they revealed what Stone brought from the mound into the booth. A former pitcher does not know the future, but he can recognize the count, the matchup, the available pitches, and the danger gathering around a particular decision. Stone made that thought process audible. After leaving the Cubs, he worked in Chicago radio and on ESPN telecasts. In 2008, he became the analyst for White Sox radio broadcasts. Beginning in 2009, he moved to the club's television booth alongside Hawk Harrelson. It was another return to the South Side, more than 3 decades after Stone had taken the mound there with a damaged shoulder. He had now been a Giant, a White Sox pitcher, a Cub, an Oriole, a Cubs broadcaster, and a White Sox broadcaster. Few careers have crossed so many of baseball's usual boundaries while remaining so closely tied to one city. After Harrelson retired, Stone worked with Jason Benetti from 2019 through 2023. Their partnership became highly regarded for the balance between Benetti's play-by-play and Stone's analysis. When Benetti left for Detroit, Stone remained with the White Sox and began working with John Schriffen in 2024. That season tested everyone connected to the organization. The White Sox endured an abysmal year, and some observers wondered whether Stone might decide he had seen enough. Instead, during the final week of the season, he announced that he had agreed to a long-term, multi-year deal beginning in 2025. He said the contract would essentially ensure that whenever he chose to retire, he would do so as a member of the Chicago White Sox organization. It was a fitting destination for a career that had rarely followed a straight line. Steve Stone did not become the right-handed Sandy Koufax. He did not build a Hall of Fame statistical record, and his physical peak did not last long enough to reshape the rest of his playing career. What he did was more specific, and in its own way, more revealing. A 5'10" pitcher with a damaged shoulder moved through 4 organizations, survived years of doubt, and found one season in which preparation, confidence, opportunity, team support, and a devastating curveball came together. He understood that the season might carry a price. He accepted that possibility and won 25 games. When his arm could no longer express what he knew about pitching, his voice took over. That is why Steve Stone's career deserves more than the simple label of 1980 Cy Young winner. The award was the summit, but the full story is about the knowledge and independence that carried him there, then kept him inside the game for decades after his final pitch. The arm gave him one unforgettable season at the top. The mind gave him a lifetime in baseball.